November 30th, Feast of St. Andrew, Apostle.
A reading from the letter of St. Paul to the Romans.
Brothers and sisters, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For one believes with the heart and so is justified, and one confesses with the mouth and so is saved. The Scripture says, "No one who believes in him will be put to shame." There is no distinction between Jew and Greek. The same Lord is Lord of all, enriching all who call upon him. For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. But how can they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how can they believe in him of whom they have not heard? And how can they hear without someone to preach? And how can people preach unless they are sent? As it is written, "How beautiful are the feet of those who bring the good news." But not everyone has heeded the good news. For Isaiah says, "Lord, who has believed what was heard from us?" Thus faith comes from what is heard, and what is heard comes through the word of Christ. But I ask, did they not hear? Certainly they did, for their voice has gone forth to all the earth, and their words to the ends of the world. The word of the Lord.
The responsorial psalm. The response is, "The judgments of the Lord are true, and all of them are just. The law of the Lord is perfect, refreshing the soul. The decree of the Lord is trustworthy, giving wisdom to the simple. The judgments of the Lord are true, and all of them are just. The precepts of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The command of the Lord is clear, enlightening the eye. The judgments of the Lord are true, and all of them are just. The fear of the Lord is pure, enduring forever. The ordinances of the Lord are true, all of them just. The judgments of the Lord are true, and all of them are just. They are more precious than gold, than a heap of purest gold, sweeter also than syrup, or honey from the comb. The judgments of the Lord are true, and all of them are just.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. As Jesus was walking by the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, who is called Peter, and his brother Andrew, casting a net into the sea. They were fishermen. He said to them, "Come after me, and I will make you fishers of men." At once they left their nets and followed him. He walked along from there and saw two other brothers, James, the son of Zebedee, and his brother John. They were in a boat with their father Zebedee, mending their nets. He called them, and immediately they left their boat and their father and followed him. The Gospel of the Lord.
November 30th, the Feast of St. Andrew. The first reading comes from Romans 10:9-18. This passage from Romans begins, "We confess on our lips that Jesus is Lord and believe in our heart that God raised him from the dead. If we do that, we will be saved." Now, believing in the heart is a question of faith, that we trust in God. But then we have to live that faith out in our everyday life, and therefore we have to confess on our lips. Remember the theology of salvation that Paul expresses. We were redeemed on Good Friday when Jesus died on the cross. We are justified when we embrace that redemption, when we trust in God through faith. And in fact, faith simply means trust. And then we will be saved on the last day if we live that faith in our everyday lives. This proclamation has to go out to all the earth. And who will bring it? the one who proclaims it, the apostles. And therefore God has sent out these preachers to the ends of the earth, like Andrew, in order to proclaim the message of salvation. We hear about the call of Andrew along with Peter, James, and John in Matthew 4:18-22. Jesus calls the two brothers, Simon, whom he calls Peter, remember Peter means rock, and Andrew, and he says, "Follow me and I'll make you fishers of men." Notice how Jesus uses the talent of these men, but redirects it. And that's very often what he does in our lives. We have been given natural talents, natural abilities, and God expects us to use them for the kingdom. Sometimes they have to be purified. We have to make sure that what we are doing is for the kingdom and not for our own self-aggrandizement. But if we do this in the Spirit, then slowly we'll be able to root out those wrong motivations that might be motivating us, and we'll find the right motivation. We also hear about how the sons of Zebedee, James and John, are called. Now notice that they had boats, therefore they weren't absolutely destitute. They had a certain amount of capital as fishermen, but they were not rich either. They were uneducated men, and Jesus calls them not because they're the best and the brightest, but because he knows what's in their hearts. He knows that they will be the right men to lead the church. Finally, they immediately leave their boats and follow Jesus. When God calls, we have to respond. And the problem is that we often don't know how he's going to call or when he's going to call. Just like these fishermen who were busy with their work, all of a sudden they're called to leave everything. God tends to call us in different ways, but very often it's in everyday ways. We get a call asking for our assistance. We find out that a relative is sick. We have the opportunity to forgive someone because they hurt us. These things happen all day long. We can interpret them as events of our life, or we can interpret them as calls from God to follow Christ. And may God bless us.